This episode of Red Marmot Gaming is brought to you in part by Marco, a free app on the Google Play Store. I'm here to talk about Marco as one of their employees.
Yes, Marco is a free-to-use app that allows two people to be able to track one another using GPS communications. It's free to use, and you can use it in various instances. Like you need to find someone for a first date, you have a lost child somewhere, you're trying to find someone at a stadium during a national disaster. That's basically what it is.
And that's great. So this will just be a platform in which we discuss certain games that are coming out, maybe some games you've missed in the past, and thank you for joining us. And again, please check out Marco on the Google Play Store. It is a free P2P real-time locator. So in this episode of Red Marmot Gaming, we'll be taking a look at Fortnite. It is a game made with Unreal Engine 4. It's also on the Unreal Engine store as well. It was made there. I think it's an interesting game. It does take a lot of elements in terms of open world and construction, which is something obviously you find in games all the time now. One of the most recent games to try to tackle that was that new EverQuest one, which didn't get very far. But open world kind of sandbox games in terms of building and construction are always interesting. I mean, you can this one definitely takes a interesting look at what you can and can't do. Obviously here, this is part of the tutorial. It's very seamless with the actual game. It gets you right into the game. This is all early access stuff, so obviously things have changed now at this point. And I don't think did you ever have a chance to play?
No, I did not.
Fortnite? Okay. So what were some of the things you were looking forward to in Fortnite? I know you said that you thought it was an interesting game. I know you didn't play it, but
I like the overall base building concept. It seemed to take a lot of the graphical assets, or at least the graphical stylings. What was that MMORPG that had Starbound? Star something?
Well, not Star Citizen.
Not Star Citizen, no. But it was recent. You guys, Vanguard Entertainment played it for a while. It was right before you guys started playing Black Desert Online. So that one that you guys were playing a lot, and you had it was a gridded system, so it was no tap targeting, so everything was sort of grids on the ground that you were using for the most part, either for your attacks, specifically for things you had to avoid from an enemy attack.
You mean WildStar?
WildStar.
Well, yeah, the graphical stylings of this game do remind me of WildStar, and even here right now, where it's like just showing you what kind of enemies you're going to encounter, that to me is like a Borderlands throwback, which is also something Vanguard Entertainment, a small segment of us, played for a while as well. I think some still do, actually. But the art styling when I first played this game, when I first played Fortnite, definitely it harkened back to something like WildStar. There's that cartoony Pixar kind of element to it. It does have that kind of sci-fi edge, obviously not space, but it is sci-fi in the fact that they're like killer zombies. There's been an apocalypse of some sort, and most of the people are missing, like there's been some kind of rapture, and you're kind of here to survive and to figure out what actually caused this. And as you can see here, this is part of the tutorial. It's showing you how to harvest materials, how to build things. The whole entire environment, wherever you go, for the most part, is destructible. Obviously, that doesn't include a lot of the forest area or the natural wild. You can't just dig a hole like you could in EverQuest Landmark or something like that and just keep going down. But in the more industrial areas, the cities, you can do that. But there is a limit. It's not that advanced. It's not entirely voxel. It's obviously using something else. It's not voxels. But again, everything in the environment is destructible. You can make resources, craft things on the fly, but I think for the most part you have to be in the actual maps to do that. The actual areas of the map. So you can't be on the overworld map and craft things and do things like that. It's a more limited aspect. And you learn all of that in the tutorial, which is what all of this gameplay right now currently is.
Very interesting. So this is a situation where you're laying down traps, I'm taking it?
Yes, you can do. So in terms of craftable things, you get cards, basically. You get cards for weapons, for traps, for the heroes you play as in these various scenarios, and also for your workers and whatnot. And here's an example of some of that. This is the quest interface. It is highly quest-driven, but you don't have to follow the storyline completely, like from beginning to end. You can branch off at any moment and do missions on the side. You unlock more missions actually by doing the main storyline quests, but you can stop at any moment and just do nothing but side quests, nothing but side missions. And that's kind of what this interface is. Here's the overview of the map at the very beginning. As you can see, it's a very small space, and they have loadouts, and you have your characters. And like I said earlier, everything's based on cards. So your heroes are cards, your weapons are cards, traps are cards, survivors are cards. Everything's a card, yeah. So when it comes to things involving your weapons and your traps, though, even though you have that card, you have to spend resources in order to build that item. They're just blueprints. So if you have like a shotgun card, for example, you have to have the raw materials, and it will tell you of how to build that shotgun. As far as I could tell, at least in early access, there really wasn't a place to go outside of the actual instance areas where you're fighting, where you're doing mission objectives, to craft in that sense. You had to be doing a mission like, Storm Shield mission, or fight the storm missions where you place an atlas. And actually, on the topic of the missions, a lot of them, yes, they are holdouts overall, ultimately, but not all of them are like that. For the most part, like the atlas mission that was just shown, or the storm shield, you're searching for an objective. You're completing mission objectives, and when you get to the final end of it, that's when you're doing a lot of your base building. But you're not locked into base building right there. You can build things in the open world of these areas to get you to other locations, to get to faraway platforms you can't reach, jump to, block out enemies, etc., or do other mini objectives. But the crux of the base building and what most people are going to focus on is going to be around the main objectives. And of course, whenever you complete a mission, you do get loot at the end, and the better you complete the mission, the more things you do in the mission, the higher the loot. And one of the big rewards, of course, is the llama. I know a lot of people have talked about the llamas and it kind of being a pay-to-win situation. Part of that is true, I would say. I would give it that deference. But at the beginning of this, you get like a huge welcome package that allows you to get access to a lot of various llamas, to get a lot of various types of loot. And, of course, the loot being cards, you're going to get all your heroes and stuff like that from there as well. The pay-to-win aspect comes into it with people saying that you can buy the more llamas, which is true, with V-Bucks, the currency of the game. I know you had heard something about that too, right?
Yes, I heard a bunch of largely negative comments about the entire situation. Personally, I didn't quite understand that. I mean, if most games like this, if you're going to have a sort of presence of an online community, they do and constant upgrades and new content as the game ages. You are going to need some layer of revenue, some sort of cash shop in order to facilitate that, or a subscription. I know I've been playing games since before when there was really just a subscription that kept the game going. And then they came up with this new concept of the cash shops where you could buy sort of vanity things or things maybe that actually help you in game.
Microtransactions and that sort of thing.
Microtransactions, yeah. I see a problem with that if you're on a game that's sort of static content, like it's an adventure or something like that or what have you. No matter you pick it up tomorrow, you pick it up 3 years from now, it's effectively going to be the exact same game. There's not going to be new content added. Then I can see where, microtransactions could be like an issue or something like that or what have you. But if it's something that's going to be brand new content, 3 years from now you're going to be playing, it's the same theme, but the things you can do in that game have expanded. Well, that money was taken to pay for a developer or a coder to be able to go ahead and create that content for you to explore. So it's one way to do it. I think the bad taste in the mouth is people will be sitting there thinking, you already got my money. So why are you trying to, get more money out of me, or this is a shakedown? And again, in games that are static, if you have like an Assassin's Creed, for instance, where the content's going to be effectively the same, it's not going to become different 5 years later or what have you, and you have a cash shop in there for various things, some sort of microtransactions, then you have a legitimate complaint.
But just playing devil's advocate here for a moment, since we're getting through some of these cards, like for example this card, like I wouldn't have, and this one too, these came all out of the llama, and the argument is that if you want more rare cards, or shots are rarer cards, you want more llamas. So if you want more pinata llamas to get the loot, or I guess the best aspects of the game, which is what you want ultimately, because you're going to spend EXP, and in the earlier scene I was spending EXP on a card to upgrade a melee weapon, so the power and output and the quality was better. It was a blue card, so it was a blue blueprint. But I'm spending it leveling it up. And if I'm not getting good quality blueprints or good quality characters, and I spend that EXP leveling them up, in a sense, and I can see the argument there, in a sense, I'm kind of just wasting my playtime on cards of low quality. There is an RNG element to it, and obviously all games have some level of RNG when it comes to certain things.
Well, is there some system for breaking the cards down into components later on?
There are for some of them, and you can even retire some of the cards in another retirement system. You won't really see that in this gameplay or walkthrough. There are people that talk about that, and you do get that in the tutorial. Like, because the tutorial never stops. Like I said at the very beginning, the tutorial kind of blends into the actual gameplay. So even though you've branched away from the story, as I have here, you will still get, like, missions that pop up that are clearly tutorial-based missions that want you to do things to open more aspects of the gameplay. But you can retire the cards. You retire the cards, you get points, you get stuff like that, you get EXP, whatever. And again, on those resources, you get EXP, those resources, EXP for your hero, EXP for your survivors. It's all separate. You get those kind of resources to make your characters, your items better by completing missions like this one here. It will tell you on the side what the mission is about and what the rewards are. Those are the static rewards. However, in the actual map itself, you can gather resources, you can find chests. I highly recommend finding the chests, by the way, because they are separate objectives. They have good resources in them. Sometimes they even have cards in them. And they will go towards your overall goal in the actual map. So if you want better quality loot at the end, like those different tiers of loot, play up that aspect. Build a lot. Get a lot of kills. Search the entire map. Like, it will all go towards that goal, which does pull away from that pay-to-win aspect.
Right, the better you do, the better your rewards. So.
Right, exactly. And I mean, that's the ultimate thing. But at the same time, it's hard in a game like this, which is, I'm going to say, it's a lobby game, but it's a fun lobby game. And it's not as lobby as you think. Like, the lobby interface is basically that floating world, that overview. But you have to understand that if you're going to be a person that's playing the game not as much, and you're kind of doing a lot with randos, you're not going to do well on those missions. You're probably going to do a silver or a little bit above. And in terms of the chest looting, you're going to get, like, you know, a tier 3, tier 4, more often than like a tier 5, tier 6 chest, which is really where the good cards are. So that's why I can say I can kind of understand that argument for especially the casual player who's coming into the game, that they're not going to see heavy quality cards, except for maybe if luck is on their side, if randomness is on their side, at the beginning of the game with the welcome package. I mean, to be honest, I didn't get another, during this entire playthrough, and beyond this, when I wasn't recording for this game or anything like that, I didn't get another gold, rare quality hero card. The first and only one I got was that hero, obviously, that you saw earlier from the llama, from the welcome package. That's the only one, and I had a choice there. And if I didn't get that choice and I didn't get that role, I wouldn't even have one. But I did get purple ones and blue ones from other areas and from other llamas. And just a side note on the V-Bucks, because the V-Bucks is the in-game currency for this, and the whole pay-to-win aspect. You can get V-Bucks from missions. It's slow, don't get me wrong. And there's also another currency you get as well, that when you turn in the points at sets of 100, it's only for that, you get a llama. So there are other avenues, but again, you're going to have to play the game a lot harder than someone that just busts open their wallet. But I guess that's true when you think about it of any game, really. If someone that busts open their wallet, they're going to have more stuff than the person that just plays the game. So I guess I just would say don't let the person that's going to bust open their wallet all the time ruin your gameplay.
I don't know how they would ruin your, I mean, and the only reason I talk about it is because a lot of the games where you can do that, it's largely competitive, meaning you're fighting against another player.
True.
That's where you see something where it's like, okay, the cash shop has ruined the overall sort of gameplay of the game because I'm just starting and I can't catch up to this other person unless I'm willing to spend cash. This is a competitive. This isn't competitive. This is cooperative. So someone showing up with a whole bunch of, you know, who had to just spend a whole bunch of money, out of game money, to purchase a whole bunch of things, he's only going to help you get to a gold or purple or whatever level chest is available towards the end. So I don't see how this is a negative to you as a player.
Right. I mean, there's definitely, I can totally understand that, and that makes sense. I don't think at this time they were even considering. I know someone has said they were considering a PvP aspect of this game. I'm not sure how they would work that in, but as of this early access, that wasn't really a thing here. I think they've been dabbling with that since then, but as of this recording, that wasn't a thing here. This particular gameplay right now, though, obviously that's the rare hero character I was talking about, and this is also a city setting, so you can see the environments drastically change from like forests to like military or urban developments to full-on cities and towns. And that's one of those chests I was mentioning as well. You want to find chests, they make a noise. Some of them are in some interesting locations, like you either have to dig through walls or dig through flooring, because that's the only way to get to them. So they can be overlooked, but they go towards objectives, they go towards completing your map, they go towards making resources for you. And this is also another good thing to point out. This is a map in which the objective isn't immediately a holdout, like I was saying before. Some of them, and the ones I prefer actually, are the ones where you locate survivors and you have a time limit till extraction, because then you can go around and you can actually loot things like is going on here, go into houses. You have that time, you have a set time limit. If it's something where you have to build a base around an objective, or you have to complete a series of objectives to start an event, like in this example right now, you miss out on doing a lot of that, because you're always going to have, again, randos. You're always going to have someone in the party that's going to, like, people are doing stuff, and you have like 2 or 3 other people, or one, that just goes around trying to do everything as quickly as possible, builds everything, builds the base, finds all the objectives really, really fast, and the mission's over. And they can be over really quick. They can end very, very fast, or you can take your time. But that's just someone's preferred playstyle. There is a bonus objective for completing missions quickly, so I can understand that. And on the right-hand side, you'll see, you know, what the objectives are that you've discovered. Now, you can go into a map and have your original objective, but you can also discover new objectives in the map, which I think is pretty cool. And of course, when you build things, when you do things, you get more stuff. Actually, also here, this is an example of the home base. Like I said, the home base is kind of the main quest. Now, you get main quests to do other things outside of the home base, but if you ever want to expand the difficulty of the overall game and expand your ability to go into the further parts of the map, like so the map clears up, you have to go back and do the home base missions. And this one is actually, again, like I said, the tutorial seamless. More gameplay showing and actually taking you through a tutorial of how to set up a trap, quote-unquote, floor that allows you to summon a defender, which is another kind of card. I didn't get many defender cards either, by the way. I stumbled across maybe 1 or 2, and that's one of the guys I got. Your defenders, you assign them to that specialized kind of floor, and you have to give them a weapon, and you have to give them ammo. All of which, mind you, are crafted. You craft those. And on the topic of crafting, I know you had mentioned this earlier before we even started this, but your weapons and stuff do break. They will break. And even, some weapons will even break weird. Like, they can have one aspect of them where they're functioning, and they'll break, kind of, and they will stop having that functionality. For example, I used to, on her particularly, I crafted a kind of a mini cannon, which shot really fast, and that's it right there. That eventually breaks, partially, before it's even out of durability, and it will no longer fire that fast. So weapons have a unique element where they can break for the worse or for the better. I didn't get it myself, but I know some guy had a melee weapon that when it broke, it turned into 2 weapons or something like that. So, obviously the durability, when it runs out though, is no longer good. This is another example of one of those side missions. You build these kind of towers following the blueprint. At the time, I didn't know that the special art on the side in the blue blueprint was how you had to build it, so I got a little bit confused with the more specialized architecture, but eventually I kind of figured it out. But once you build for structures like these, you get access to a satellite that gives more missions, and you have to give it additional blue glow, which is a specialized resource per map. You can't carry it across maps. That allows you to unlock more things. So that's another interesting aspect. There's always something going on in the game, and the maps are big enough where people can kind of adventure out pretty far and do various things and aspects of the gameplay.
So this is a treasure goblin I'm looking at?
Right. So one of the resources, like I just mentioned, like the blue glow, it's coveted sometimes by these little imps. And when you find them, this doesn't always happen, but there's a chance that this imp will appear and steal the blue glow from you before you can get to it. Then you have to defeat it, and it's actually another mini event. You'll see the other chests and box popped up. I was alone for that, so my team wasn't around to collect their stuff. But if they wander through the area afterwards, they could open their boxes too and get something. But the point for the imps is, once you kill them, they will spawn more blue glow, and you can get that. And blue glow is kind of an important resource for various aspects. It's more important to the main storyline quests, but for each map, there's something that the blue glow can be used for. Especially if you're on a map where you have to defend something like the Atlas, because the Atlas requires blue glow to start up. A little bit on the lore of the game, like really quickly. Obviously, it's a post-apocalyptic thing. There's been a storm. A bunch of people have disappeared, and all of a sudden there are all these zombies, and no one can explain the zombies. Apparently, there was some corporation that was aware of the storm coming that might even be responsible for the storm. And you'll learn more about that in the questing of the game, so I won't spoil all that for you here, but you learn that the blue glow is something that they were also investigating. So the blue glow, like I said, is kind of this resource that is a little bit rare. This is an engineer, and I think that's pretty fun. They can deploy as one of their special abilities a shield charge, just like how you get access to special items to call down, like, rocket fire and stuff like that. Each class has its own special attack that can be unlocked, and you can also unlock more through the talent tree system, which was shown a little bit earlier in the game. The talent tree system was a little bit confusing for me, but again, there's always aspects of the game of which is like, leveling up, turning in items. Like I said, it's a very card-heavy driven game, so little beating a dead horse, but I can understand the argument when someone says, well, if I really want to get good at the game, I gotta pop up my wallet to get more llamas, to get more cards, because it's a heavily card-driven game. But I never once paid for anything during all this, and I still had a lot of fun with it. So yeah, this is again one of those towers. I think in this little run here, I start to get a little bit better with figuring out how the blueprints work. And if you look, you can see on the little blue parts that you just have to follow that design pattern. That wasn't clear to me at the beginning at all, and the tutorial did not touch on that at all, but I did eventually figure it out. And again, once you complete it, you get a satellite, which gives you more quests, options, and stuff like that. So would you play something like this? I think it's available through Unreal, but you have to go through Unreal's launcher, and obviously it was a game made in Unreal 4, so they're the ones producing it.
Yeah, I would. I can't be. I want to be careful here. But I believe that it is something that you pay for, and there's a tenet that it might be free at some point.
Right, I think yeah.
But I don't know if it's free as is.
And again, like I said, this is all early access stuff, so things are probably bound to change. But it was pretty polished for early access stuff. And it was definitely fun. I would say that it was definitely a break from some of the usual stuff, some of the MMORPG stuff that we usually show on this channel. In addition to just full-on co-op things. Like, this was a good co-op, like you had mentioned, full-on playthrough with other players in a cooperative sense. Like, again, there is no PvP aspect yet, and there might not be, but it definitely was a fun experience, and it definitely took co-op building to another level, because you don't really see you do see a lot of building games like Minecraft and stuff like that, like voxel stuff, but you don't see an aspect like this where it's involving, well, I guess co-op building. Like I said, I've never really seen that in another game, really, like co-op building to this level, and especially with these environments. And it looks really polished. Again, if you don't like the cartoony stuff, like I know some people had an issue with WildStar and it looking too cartoony, then obviously this wouldn't be the game for you, because that's heavily what the visuals are. But the crafting, the building, the classes are fun. And again, that wasn't a unique ninja ability. That was an item. That was a rocket barrage anyone can do. This is the ninja, the male one. And on the topic of characters too, abilities and appearance are also randomized. Like, you really can't control the facial features and stuff like that, but you do get the randomness of the characters looking different based upon the kind of card you get. And even the skills they have, to an extent, are varying a little bit. So I think it's overall a pretty good game.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think it's going to be a game developer out there, a very good presentation out there. I hope that they have good representation of what their product is, so that they have a good community of players, and we're able to see a whole lot of content come from these guys, come from the cash shop that they have.
And this has been Fortnite, and this has been Red and Marmot Gaming, a division of TMV Vanguard Entertainment. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out our sponsor on Google